Okay, let's just do it down. So, uploads have been basically non-existent for like a month, but with classes and all, it's just crazy. But let's get started. Today we are going to be talking about Ted J. Kaczynski, who was also known as the Unabomber. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Let me just pull it up on my phone because that's what I need in my search history on my phone. That's what I need in my search history at all. You know, like FBI agents, if you're like watching this is a hobby. I'm not going to do anything in here. Full disclaimer though, don't idolize these people, please. Please don't. I know that it seems like pretty interesting to go for, oh my god, serial killer, he's so bad. He's the bad boy in high school. And it's like, no, do not do that. As always, got my mug full of coffee because I can't go a day without coffee. But here we go then. Ted J. Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber, also known as Theodore John Kaczynski, born May 29th, 1942. He was an American domestic terrorist, an anarchist, and a former mathematicians professor. So he was uber smart. So he's dead now. He's dead. Okay, so he was a mathematics prodigy, but abandoned his academic career in 1969 to pursue a more primitive life. You know, like go off the grid, hunting. You know, like barely any contact with the outside world. So yeah, that's Ted Kaczynski in just like a box, a crazy little box. But anyway, his killing spree was, or like his killing time frame was 78 to 95. He only killed 3 people and injured 23 others in nationwide bombings that and the bombs he made himself. They were like homemade pipe bombs. Which I'm not going to tell you how to make because I don't want to know that information, and you guys should need to know it. You guys don't want to know it. You know what? I'm going to paint my nails while I talk about this. So, my mom gave me like a bunch of old nail polishes. Hi, Papa. Sorry, my cat. So anyway, he issued them in, like as a protest against like the industrialization of his area around his cabin, which it was more like a trapper shack. If you ever like seen like the inside of a trapper shack, it's just like one room. You go outside to do your business. If you're lucky, you could have like a bucket in the corner. But yeah, it got cold. Trapper shacks don't really have like good insulation, but they do have like a really nice like log fireplace in there, so you can at least have heat. It's pretty nice. The fact that I know this. My cat's now on my blanket. It's fine. So anyway, he issued a social critique opposing the industrialization and advocating a nature-centered form of anarchism. So yeah, he was just like tree hugger. I don't want to say that. I said it. But anyway, he was captured in 1996 after he was found out. So that's good. He was apprehended on April 3rd, 1996, to be exact. His education ranged from Harvard, which he got his AB, his associates, and his bachelor's, and then he went to the University of Michigan to get his MA, his master's, and his PhD. So he was actually a Dr. Kaczynski. Dr. Kaczynski, I swear, if I hear that and if I heard someone like that, I'd be like, oh, are you related to so-and-so? And if they say no, I'm just like, oh, okay, sorry I brought that up. But anyway, he also had like a scientific career. His fields were complex analysis, and he learned them at the University of California, Berkeley, and his thesis was boundary functions, and his doctoral advisor was Alan Shields. So here is where he goes off the grid. In 1971, Kaczynski moved to a remote cabin without electricity or running water, so he went outside, or he went in the bucket, tossed it in the river, near Lincoln, Montana, where he lived as a recluse while learning survivalist, tactics to become self-sufficient, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to go off the grid, I say do it. So Valentine's Day is almost coming up, and I'm pretty sure there has been a Valentine's Day killer. Okay. So let's keep going. And while he was becoming self-sufficient, he witnessed the destruction of the wild, the wilderness surrounding his cabin. Because I think 3 different factories started opening up around him. And yeah, that's bad. Don't destroy wildlife just for your own personal gain or monetary gain. And if you look at pictures of his cabin, it's beautiful. Around it is beautiful. But anyway, wilderness surrounding his cabin concluded that living nature was unattainable, which sad, and he started his bombing campaign in 1978. Though in 1995, he sent a letter to the New York Times and promised to desist from the terrorism. Desist from the terrorism if the Times or the Washington Post published his essay, Industrial Society and Its Future, in which he argued that his bombings were extreme but necessary to attract attention to the erosion of human freedom and dignity by modern technologies that require mass organization. So, yeah. Crazy little boy. Kaczynski was the subject of the longest and most expensive, not extensive, expensive investigation in the history of the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the FBI actually used the case identifier Unabomb, UNABOM, University and Airline Bomber, to refer to his case before his identity was known, which resulted in the media naming him the Unabomber. FBI agent and Attorney General Janet Marino published pushed for the publication of Industrial Society and Its Future, which occurred in the Washington Post in December of 1995. And upon reading the essay, Kaczynski's brother David Kaczynski, recognized the poised style and submitted a tip. And after his arrest in 1996, Kaczynski tried and failed to dismiss his court-appointed lawyers because they wanted him to plead insanity to avoid the death penalty. He did not believe that he was insane. And in 1998, a plea bargain was reached under which he pled guilty to all charges and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So yeah, what made him, Ted Kaczynski, Theodore John Kaczynski, crazy? So here we go. He was born May 22nd, 1942, in the beautiful city of Chicago, Illinois, to working class parents, Wanda, Teresa, and Theodore Richard Kaczynski. And his dad was actually a sausage maker, and both Wanda and Theodore were Polish Americans. Polish is a very weird language to me. I keep going on tangents whenever I do these, and I don't know why. Maybe it's my ADHD acting up whenever I turn on the camera. But that is fine with me. It gives me more things to talk about if I just say what comes into my brain. So, continuing, the Polish Americans, his parents, Wanda and Theodore, were raised as Catholics but later became atheists, and they married in April 11th, 1939. So yeah, they were married for 12 years. No. 3 years. 3 years before he was born, so yeah. Woo! And then Kaczynski's parents told his younger brother David that Ted had been a happy baby until severe hives forced him into a hospital isolation with limited contact with others, after which he showed little emotion for months. So an allergic reaction caused him to be a recluse, apparently. From 1st to 4th grade, so ages 6 to 9, he attended Sherman Elementary School in Chicago, where administrators described him as healthy and well-adjusted. In 1952, 3 years after David was born, the family actually moved to the suburban area in Illinois called Evergreen Park. And then Ted actually had to transfer to the junior high school, Evergreen Park Central Junior High, and after being tested on his IQ, he scored a whopping 167. He skipped the 6th grade and went on to 7th, so he was ahead of most of his peers that he grew up with. Kaczynski later described this as a pivotal event. Previously, he had been socialized with his peers and even was a leader, but after skipping ahead of them, he felt he did not fit with the older children who actually bullied him, which don't do that. Don't bully others because they're smarter than you, because they will have they will possibly have better jobs than you and will possibly live longer than you and contribute more to society, apparently. And the neighbors, like in Evergreen Park, later described the Kaczynskis as a civic-minded folk. The ones recalling the parents sacrificed everything they had for their children, which should do anyway. Both Ted and David were intelligent, but Ted was exceptionally intelligent, so. And neighbors described him as a smart but lonely individual, which, I mean, if you're very intelligent, that seems like to be the thing. Like, you don't really, like, socialize with people because you can't really, like, connect with others, like, easily, apparently, if you have a high IQ. At school, and his mother, Martha, no. Yeah, Martha Teresa, right? Because I almost, Wanda Teresa. His mother, Wanda Teresa, recalled Ted being a shy child who became unresponsive if pressured into a social situation. So that deems him, like, to be autistic because he can't really, like, he doesn't do well in social situations. But that could also be him being, like, an anxious, smart kid because, like, his IQ is so high. But, But after that, at one point, she was actually so worried about his social development that she considered entering him into a study for autistic children led by Bruno Bettelheim. But she actually decided against it after she observed him being abrupt and cold. So, yeah, good on her. High school. Kaczynski attended Evergreen Park Community High School, where he excelled academically. He was in the marching band. He played trombone. Boop, boop, boop. Marching band babies. He was a member of the mathematics, biology, coin, and German clubs. And in 1996, a former classmate said, quote, he was never really seen as a person, as an individual personality, yada, yada, yada. He was always regarded as a walking brain, so to speak, end quote, which that's actually kind of sad because most people only saw him for his smarts and not him. So let us continue. During this period, Kaczynski became increasingly interested in mathematics, spending hours and hours and hours studying and solving advanced problems. He became associated with a group of like-minded boys interested in science and mathematics, known as the Briefcase Boys, for their penchant for carrying briefcases. Which I don't... kind of cool, but also kind of nerdy. I say that as I'm talking about him, and I act like that I'm not smart either. I'm not going to turn into a serial killer, but let's just say that I have like a really high IQ for, myself. I think in high school it was 137. It could be higher now, but 137, that's pretty high for a high school student. But I always, it is what it is. I hate that. Let's keep going. All throughout high school, Kaczynski was ahead of his classmates academically, but not emotionally, which is kind of sad, but let's keep going. He was placed in the more advanced mathematics classes, and he soon mastered the material. He even skipped the entire 11th grade. So he went freshman, sophomore, senior, And by attending summer school, he graduated at the age of 15. So he couldn't drive. He couldn't buy alcohol. Like, he was very much still a kid whenever he graduated. He was only 2 years younger than me whenever I graduated. I graduated at 17. So, yeah. Kind of smart. And Kaczynski was one of his school's 5 national merit finalists and was encouraged to apply to Harvard. He entered Harvard on a full scholarship in 1958 at the age of 16. A classmate later said that Kaczynski was emotionally unprepared. They packed him up and sent him to Harvard before he was ready. He didn't even have a driver's license, I believe. You had to be 17 and a half in Illinois before you can actually get your permit, your learner's permit. And then after a certain amount of time of driving and experience, you get your actual license at 18, which is what I did. But I actually finished mine early at 17 and a half, so. Harvard College. During his first year at Harvard, Kaczynski lived at 8 Prescott Street, which was designed to accommodate the youngest, most precocious incoming students in a small, intimate living space. And for the following 3 years, he lived at Eliot's house. Housemates and other students at Harvard described Kaczynski as a very intelligent but relatively quiet and reserved person. Kaczynski earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in mathematics from Harvard in 1962, finishing with a GPA of a whopping 3.12. In his second year at Harvard, Kaczynski participated in a study described by author Alston Chase as a purposely brutalizing psychological experiment led by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray. The subjects were told that they would debate personal philosophies with a fellow student and were asked to write essays detailing their personal beliefs and aspirations. The essays were then turned over to an anonymous attorney who in a later session would confront and belittle the subjects in what Murray himself called vehement, sweeping, and personal abusive attacks, using the context of the essay as ammunition. So using the darkness inside a person against them, which don't do that. That is not good. And electrodes were actually monitoring the subject's psychological reactions. These encounters were filmed. The subject's expressions of anger and rage were later played back to them repeatedly. The experiment actually lasted 3 years with someone verbally abusing and humiliating Kaczynski every single week. Kaczynski spent 200 hours as part of the study. 200 hours being belittled and abused by his psychologist at the age of 16 to 18, which is when the brain is mostly developing. It's still developing until 23, I believe. For men, it's 23. I think for women, it's 24, 25. So yeah, his brain was shot after that. Kaczynski's lawyers later attributed his hostility towards mind control techniques to his participation in Murray's studies. Some sources have suggested that Murray's experiments were part of Project MK Ultra, the Central Intelligence Agency's research into mind control. And while Chase and others have also suggested that this experience may have motivated Kaczynski's criminal activities, Kaczynski stated he resented Murray and his co-workers primarily because of the invasion of his privacy he received as a result of their experiments. He also said he was quite confident that my experiences with Professor Murray had no significant effect on the course of my life, which I believe is 100% false. Because he was abused, and abuse changes a person's mindset. I'm going to skip over his mathematics career. So yeah,